All right, guys, welcome to Strictly Sports Live. We are back again this week to kind of recap the championship weekend games. It's going to be another three-man show. Aggie's not feeling well tonight, so we'll be running it with just the three of us. We're basically just going to run through the games and then maybe talk a little bit about some players and their futures, and then a little bit of the head coaching swaps that have taken and the new hires. So let's start off with the Chiefs Bills. It ended up being kind of the Chiefs controlling it. I mean, for the most part, it just wasn't that exciting of a game. The Bills at the end tried to make it a game, but I think the Chiefs just kind of showed what people thought they really could be this year with how dominant they were against the Bills. Um, but yeah, what did you guys think about that game?
Yeah, ended up being a pretty good a good game for the Chiefs, a high scoring game and a fun game to watch. I thought, but to me, it showed what the Chiefs I've thought of the Chiefs all year, and I've just and to me what they really have been and what they're capable of, and a little bit about what the Bills have been in the postseason, which is just a little bit disappointing for them. Um, I just keep hearing all this talk leading into the game and in the last like month of the season because the Chiefs played a bunch of close games that all these commentators are like, I don't think they're as good as last year. I think they're ripe for an upset in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do it. And I'm just sitting back looking like I think they're easily better this year than they were last year. And it's all because of, and I've been saying it all year, this defense has been improved from last year. The offense is always going to be good. Maybe the numbers don't look as good as certain in the past couple years, stats wise, maybe the points per game or whatever. But this team moves the ball whenever, up and down the field, whenever they want to still. As long as they don't turn it over and nothing crazy happens to Mahomes, they're going to move the ball up and down the field. They're going to be just as good. Splitting hairs on what year offensively they're really better to me if you really watch them and not just follow the stats.
Yeah.
But watching their defense play this year was the difference. And their defense came out and played great. They got pressure on Josh Allen. Bills had trouble moving the ball. It looked like they were sending free blitzers kind of the whole game really, whether it was Matthew or somebody from the defensive backfield sending them out there, and they really had a lot of success with that on defense. Offensively, they stayed patient. The Bills, what do we talk about? They're going to sit back in that shell. They did it. The Chiefs played patient. They did it differently because we were wondering, will they run it as much as they did in the first match? I don't think anybody thought they would, and they didn't. They decided basically just to throw it short. Throw it short and then let the guys run long, which Hill got. They ran some gadgets where they got some guys, receivers running some end arounds and some stuff, got them loose on the outside to really make the big plays as opposed to throwing over the top of that shell, which you really can't do. So they stayed patient enough with it, move the ball all day up and down the field, and their defense just looked so good. And that was the reason I think they dominated the game as opposed to winning a close shootout, high scoring game. I was just really impressed with that defense, and this is what I see from the Chiefs and why I don't think there's any stopping them really because of what they're doing on both sides of the ball this year as opposed to in past years. To me, just one side of the ball.
Yeah, really, to me, the game shouldn't even have been as close as it was because if you look back, the Bills were spotted kind of 9 points off of the botched punt. So other if you take that away, I mean, the game wouldn't even have been as close as it was for the most part. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs to me looked the best they've looked all year, and I think it goes back to kind of what you said. Yes, the Bills had a dud, but I think they just in the end they peaked a little too early. They played their best ball towards the end of the season, and then when it came playoff time, they just kind of averaged out and looked like a middle of the road playoff team. Um, but I mean, hats off to the Chiefs. We'll see if they can carry it on to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this game like really played out exactly like you would like I thought maybe it would. Like we talked about Josh Allen, like how many turnovers would he have, plus or minus two. He had, two picks, probably could have thrown like five in the game that they dropped. Like he
There were
really
some
played.
drops.
The second one
Yeah, he
wasn't his
definitely
fault
played.
though. That was a bad tipped ball. But
But I expected like, and he's shown this sometimes in these new moments where there's pressure to kind of make some of those throws. So anyway, he did that. And all in all, I think the Chiefs did whatever they wanted to do on offense. Honestly, like Mahomes was playing at a high level. Um, you know, outside of the brief glimmer of hope after the muff punt, that whole entire game, like after halftime, I was like, I know what the result of this game is. I didn't really feel like the Bills were going to mount some type of comeback. They just didn't really seem to be able to match the Chiefs on any level whatsoever, and so that's what it is. The Chiefs were hands down the better team, and the Bills, great season, way to build off of what you did the previous year when you got ousted in the first round. You make it to the AFC Championship game. All those young players got some experience, but Mahomes is trending at this point as being The next, I mean, he's already a great quarterback, but he is beginning to build that resume, that where maybe at this point, if he wins this Super Bowl this year, where he's going to surpass people like Rodgers and Breeze, and he's really on a trajectory to start chasing down some of the really great quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion. I think we'll talk about that maybe next week. All our viewers out there, look out for that. I think that's a good discussion to have about what level of greatness is Mahomes already at. But as
Yeah.
far as this game went, Dan, I know you mentioned the muff punt. The muff punt made it kind of look at halftime because of that, and for basically a free 6 points that they were given. It made the game look at halftime as if, okay, it was competitive.
They're in it.
But if you watch the game, it wasn't competitive. The defense pretty much dominated. KC's defense pretty much dominated Buffalo,
Yep.
and the offense did whatever they wanted. Take the 6 points, the free 6 points they given them is 21-6. And if they would have, been able to, if the ball would have been in Mahomes' hands a few more times, it would have been more than 21. So I think they scored every possession in the first half. So yeah.
I got to give some props to the red zone efficiency from the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about that, and
they were good.
Here they come out.
They
come out
well.
5 for 5.
Yep.
And they didn't hit big plays. They were down there inside the 20 and hit it every time. And they were and red zone wise and everything wise, they just looked so sharp on offense.
They did.
I mean, Mahomes got the ball out quick, and they got chunks, and they got run after the catch, and everything just looked drawn up. Like, oh, we know the defense they're going to run, and we're just going to pick you apart. We're not going to, the whole scheme of a shell and a prevent, and not a prevent, but a bend but don't break is we don't think that you can consistently complete those passes. Somewhere along the way, you'll drop a pass or two, which will cause a 3rd and 10, and then we'll get the stop, and then that'll be a punt or a stop field goal. And they're just like, okay, watch us go all the way up and down the field and not drop a pass and not miss a completion and not miss a read and not take a sack. That's what you bank on when you play that defense. And the Chiefs are like, okay, cool, we're not going to do it because they were so sharp. But I think, to me, I turned the conversation, I just look at it from Buffalo's side. Like, their defense was disappointing all year. It needs to get better. But, I mean, if we're being honest, Josh Allen was a bit of a disappointment in the playoffs this year. From what he showed in the beginning, and everyone hyped him up, he did not play really that good in the playoffs, and their offense didn't in general. So
yeah, and I think I think it just proves the Chiefs are still the class of the AFC and the league in my eyes. But if you're a Chiefs fan, as we switch over to the NFC, if you're a Chiefs fan, you got to feel good about seeing that toe didn't seem to hinder Mahomes very much, and now he's got 2 weeks to rest before the Super Bowl. So, but heading over to the NFC, we had the Packers-Bucks game, which ended up being a pretty good game. It looked like it for a little bit there that it might have gotten out of hand. A really, really disastrous piss poor effort at the end of the half to give up the touchdown and make it an 11-point game. You got to start thinking like, Green Bay goes into the locker room feeling super dejected, but they battled back. They got it to where they needed to be. They got it to a possession game. And then as soon as they got it to like within 5 or 6 points, I don't remember what it was, they just couldn't do anything. 3 straight drives of stopping Brady that they could not move the ball. And that ultimately is, what led them to.
Yeah, so for me, I watched the first half, which I think we can all agree in the first half, the Bucks kind of had control of the game. They were controlling the tempo of the game. And but even with that being said, it was close. And I left my house to drive over to my in-laws because we were going to watch the rest of that game and then the Bills-Chiefs game over there. And I was watching like on my ESPN like Gamecast, like every now and then it would update or whatever. And I saw like with 6 seconds left, it looked like the Bucks might get in position for a field goal. And I was like, oh, okay, they're going to get a field goal maybe before the half. And the next thing you know, I look at my phone and it says like touchdown to Scotty Miller. And I'm like, how does that happen? How do you let that happen? And like even seeing the replay, then eventually when I got over there, like what a collapse. Like what a Green Bay thing to do in the playoffs, right? Like
it was classic Green Bay. The whole game was classic Green Bay, and that play, the 2 plays at the end of each half, the decision by the coach, them not to be able to get a single yard on the first 3 downs there, and then the play at the end of the half kind of sums up what Green Bay is, and I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching. I have heavy criticism for LaFleur. I've not seen this defense improve in 2 years, and I know he's an offensive guy, but get the right guy in there and improve this defense. The game as a whole, to me, was classic Green Bay. The first 2.5 quarters, they laid an absolute egg. And what do we talk about with Green Bay? In these big games, they lay an egg. Now, yes, they came back. Brady tried to let them back in the game. I mean, he basically did. He throws 3 straight picks, but you mentioned it, Juddy. Their offense on 2 of the first 3, they go 3 and out each time. So I look at this game and I just look at, as more than anything, a Green Bay all-around failure. to me, it starts with the coaching, and then it goes down to the defense. A little bit on the offense. Rodgers played well, and I think the offense did their part, but the problem was their 2 turnovers were costly. Both their turnovers led to 2 touchdowns for Tampa Bay, and on the turnovers that Green Bay got, they didn't get anything but 1 field goal in the last drive where the controversial decision to settle for that field goal, and that was it. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, specifically on the second half, on the end of the first half, play to Scotty Miller. That's terrible. It's Kevin King got burnt the whole first half. He got burnt the whole game.
He's the reason they got the PI at the end too.
And also, why is he playing inside leverage? Why, when you know you would think they're trying to get an outside pass. They had no timeouts to get out of bounds for 5 or 7 yards for a field goal, which is what most teams do. You're playing inside leverage, and then you're supposed to be, the defense should be set up where you've got a couple guys short on the outside, a couple guys intermediate on the outside, protecting the sidelines, let them have the deep seam, and then have the 2 safeties in the middle to make sure, obviously, they don't go over the top. Well, they played everything inside and let them run outside and over the top. So I'm confused by the call, and I'm confused by why Kevin King isn't in his back pedal faster. That dude was terrible all game. He got burnt up and down the field. He looked like I said, about pretty much their whole defensive backfield for the Packers. We were worried about their front getting run on. Well, they didn't really get run on. They got thrown on because their DBs look like junior varsity players against varsity receivers. The play to Godwin in the first half where he just goes up over the guy. He's covered. Brady just throws it up for grabs, and Godwin goes and just kind of pushes him aside and makes the play.
Godwin can't catch a pass when he's wide open, but he can catch that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there thinking to myself,
and he made the plays. And he made the plays. And I just look at it defensively. It was a total failure from Green Bay. Yeah, they got the turnovers in the second half. But to me, a couple of those really were just Brady making really bad decisions. I don't necessarily, and my takes. We've had discussion on turnovers. To me, 90% of the time, I blame the offense. I don't give the credit to the defense. I blame the offense. Their turnovers.
One of the things I wanted to say about the two of the Brady picks, they were glorified punts when he threw them. It was third down. He threw it so far. He threw it down the field where by the time the ball got caught, they were tackled. It was almost like a punt anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'll be honest, I don't know that he really played that amazingly well though of a game like Brady in my eyes. He missed some pretty bad throws, especially in the second half.
I thought he played a good first half and a bad second half.
Yeah.
Like a really good first half, really. But the second half was pretty bad.
Yeah. So he missed Mike. Was it Mike Evans? He missed down the seam or he threw it high and then he tipped it.
He Mike Evans on that. Yep.
The ball came out of his hand in the second half. Several balls just came out fluttering. And I'm like, And I don't know if it was a grip issue or what, but to me, it came down. I give Brady credit. He played a really good first half. Like I said, their offense came out with a good game plan. I think they said, for whatever reason, we thought the Bucs needed to run the ball to move it. And they were like, nah, we don't think we do. The first drive, they came out and got like 3 yards of carry, and they were just getting 3rd and 4, and they were converting the 3rd and 4s. But at the end of the day, the passing game is what put up their points. And just a total meltdown from Green Bay to me. That first 2.5 quarters, the play at the end of the first half, how bad their defense looked in general the whole first half. To give that up to an offense that really hasn't been that explosive and has had their struggles. Green Bay's got to get this figured out, and I'll be honest with you. Moving forward, we're going to talk about Rodgers in his future, but for me, I look at the head coach. I don't know if they've got the head coach in there to win a championship. They've got the talent. Okay, maybe the defensive talent isn't all that, and the offensive talent is a lot better. But you don't need Pro Bowls at every position on defense to play solid defense along with a really good offense that they do have to win a Super Bowl. And I think LaFleur, they don't look physical.
The decision at the end was
against the good teams.
Was bad.
They don't look physical. That's an issue from the head coach to me. And defensively, they look out of sorts in the big games. And offensively, they don't play up to what they have when they do throughout the regular season. So I don't know, man. I'm
trying to figure out.
You can't play afraid like that, though. You can't make a call.
Let's talk about the decision at the end. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about preparation in the big games.
That's a game management issue, though. That to me, was bad enough. Everybody on Twitter was like, "Is Mike Tomlin coaching the Green Bay Packers right now?" I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I don't know. You have Aaron Rodgers. The bottom line is you're going to have to get a stop either way. So you might as well go for it. Have them pinned back there if you don't get it. And then you still got to get the stop. So why don't you just go for it? I don't get it.
Well, worse than that is the 2-point conversion before that or whatever that they went for. Which
should have been caught. Should have been caught. But it was still not the right call.
But it caused them to need a touchdown or whatever instead of just a field goal at that point in the game. And
do you think if they're only down 4 instead of 5, where you don't have to worry about if they're only down 7 instead of 8, Do you think they probably go for that? I think they probably do.
Probably do.
Because you're part of the reason that I don't think it was as bad a call as some people do for him.
He'd rather win than tie.
Right. But part of the worry when he kicked that field goal, part of it is, okay, even if we get the touchdown, if we don't get the 2, we still got to score again.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, but if you're only down 7, you're like, we're going for this because we know if we score, we're going to tie. The risk reward is bigger because the reward isn't.
It's the same mentality as the 2-point conversion thing with the analytics.
Tie.
It's like, oh, well, you can win it in regulation or you can tie it. So that he would have been tied if they didn't get it and they were down 8. If they get the stop and score, they're still only tying it. Whereas kicking the field goal, if they score after the stop, they win. So it doesn't go to overtime.
I'm always wondering, like, in that situation, I always ask myself, what would Doug do? Doug would have.
We know what Doug would have done.
Well, Doug would have went for it. That's his problem. He doesn't know when not to. I mean, I'm not, and y'all know me. I'm not a guy who
I know
is a go for it guy or a 2. I hate that these teams go for. To me, unless you're down a 28 plus points like early in a game. To me, there's no reason to go for 2 until the 4th quarter because you just take your points. You take your points all the time. I don't care if it's mid 3rd quarter and you just want to get it tied because it's 21-19 and you think, oh, let's just go ahead and go for 2.
Yeah.
Like there are plenty more points to be scored in a game in the mid 3rd quarter.
That point was not the right time. The guy should have caught it, to be honest, but you don't go for it there. So let's talk about that then. Obviously, we saw it happen in the game, and the Bucs are heading to the Super Bowl. I think personally they'll have to play a lot better than they did because the Chiefs will not let up on them like that offensively, like the Packers did.
I have a question about the Bucs defense because we've seen for 2 straight weeks now the Bucs defense kind of carry. Yeah. Is the Bucs defense maybe a little bit better than we've given it credit? Like for me personally, I don't want to get too much into previewing, but we were talking about kind of game speed. Well, at the beginning of the game, it looked like everybody was slow, but then the Bucs defense came out and they looked like they were flying around.
To me, it's more than their full defense. To me, the thing I've noticed, and I'll keep it brief so we can kind of move on, but is their defensive line has been tenacious. Their defensive line reminds me of the Giants' defensive lines from the Super Bowl years when they literally every play you have the quarterback in shambles trying to get rid of the ball, and they did it to Breeze, and I didn't see them do it so much to Heineke. But I think they played a little soft against Heineke, thinking that they didn't have to really try, and it kind of backfired a little bit. But the last 2 weeks, like you said, we've seen their defensive line getting crazy amounts of pressure, and it's really putting QBs into a fit. So hopefully, a little bit of a preview, but hopefully Mahomes' toe isn't an issue, so that he does have that mobility to kind of use his escapability.
Yeah, just real quick on their defense, I think it was just inconsistent this year. I think they showed at times to be like a top 5 type defense.
Yeah.
And I love Todd Bowles as the defensive coordinator. So I think they've gotten their issues handled. They did all this without Antoine Winfield. We talked about how important he is.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
So you figure, so I wasn't totally surprised because I was a little surprised. I thought they wouldn't be. I mean, I thought their defense was the difference in that second half of why they were able to hold on after Brady's picks. But I just think they were inconsistent, but in no way did I think that, they weren't capable of good performances because they've got some talent and Todd Bowles is a real good DC and they've shown the first 6 weeks or so that they can play really good defense. So,
yep.
Hey Juddy, we got a comment from a viewer regarding why Brady's ball was fluttering, and this is from one Greg Ferry who said they overinflated the ball at halftime, so that might have been why the ball was fluttering for Brady.
Yeah,
they didn't take enough air out of it.
So it was the ball in the first half was deflated then. Okay,
slightly, yes.
All right.
Makes sense.
I want an investigation launched right now.
So talking about quarterbacks,
can't handle another deflate gate.
Talking about Aaron Rodgers specifically, among other things, and we can kind of talk a little bit about other quarterbacks as well. But there was the whole thing about he said futures are uncertain. But I will say that even though we're talking about this, that he did come out on Pat McAfee's show this week and said there's nothing to that. I fully intend to be back, and the CEO of the Packers was like, he's not going anywhere. You guys we're not idiots. We're not he's not going nowhere, which we all believed. But I mean, just in general, he seemed so dejected in that post game thing, and I think maybe I don't know. Everybody's talked so much about the turmoil he had with McCarthy, and that they said, oh, LaFleur's like him, and they're buddy, they're the best friends. Do you think that Rodgers is yeah, you're a cool dude, but if you still can't get me over that hump of now I'm 1-4 in NFC Championships games, you're not the guy for me.
Yeah, for me, first of all, it amazes me that the shows after the day after this loss, the shows this talking point is will Rodgers leave? Will he threaten? And they went on this whole thing with Schefter on Get Up on ESPN and all this, and then he's just hyping up this whole if Aaron Rodgers can do whatever he wants, he could just tell him I'm not coming back for Green Bay. I'm not playing again if you guys don't trade me. It's when guys lose this game this deep, when you're this close to the Super Bowl, you're going to be dejected. You're going to feel in that moment like, man, like he might have felt like, what's the coach doing? Like, I don't want to play for LaFleur right now in that moment. Like anybody who ever, has been emotional about something with somebody is like, in that moment, you feel a certain way about somebody or whatever. And to me, watching the press conference, I didn't even feel like he said anything that crazy where I was like, oh, no. Like, is he saying he doesn't want to come back to Green Bay? Is he saying he wants to retire? I looked at it and I'm like, people blow stuff up so much. It's like, it's not even a conversation. Green Bay's not dumb enough to trade him. Yeah. And Rodgers, I don't think is crazy enough to think like Green Bay overall, as much as I, have been critical of them, but to me, I'm more critical of them because of what everyone talks about them being, which is like that team. And we've seen how soft they've been in the big games and the duds they lay. I think overall though, they're 2 years in a row, 12+ win team. Like he has no need to go anywhere. They're close. They just need to get it figured out. So all this talk about he's not going anywhere. He's coming back for another years. And I know part of it is because they drafted Jordan Love last year and they want to throw all that into dumb. That was a little alarming to me and kind of dumb because I think Rodgers, has plenty of years still left.
And you got to get a guy weapons. You don't go get guys that are a replacement instead of weapons.
When you got that guy, and it's one of the things that the funny thing to me is the media rips the Steelers for not having the guy, right? They keep just building around Ben. But then when a team does go and kind of a little early goes to try and find the guy.
Like when they got Mason Rudolph, people said that.
Which is, I like the Steelers route, which is while we've got our guy, which we feel like Ben's our guy, while we've got him, we're not worried about putting big draft capital into the future. We're trying to win right now. And then we'll pay the consequences the year or two after Ben leaves. And maybe they will, and they probably will. And that's fine. To me, I'd rather have the Packers do that. So I was confused by that too, but man, Rodgers isn't going anywhere. They got 2 to 3 more year window with Rodgers playing at an elite, if not more, playing at an elite level, and they might be able to pull a Super Bowl out if LaFleur can get his head out of his butt.
And I'll say this:
and having the team prepared, it's crazy to me that people drum off.
Yeah, I'll say this: if you're Aaron Rodgers and you are Aaron Rodgers, you're the MVP. You're considerably by a lot of people to have the best arm, most whatever, one of the best quarterbacks. If you're not mad at your coach for not letting you go forward on fourth down, then you're not a true athlete. So of course he's going to be mad. Like, how can you get mad at the guy for being upset?
I think that's what he was most dejected about.
Yeah.
Like
he's like, that's not a decision I had to make or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think he wants to be in Green Bay. I think he likes being there. I don't think he's looking to get out or start anywhere new, especially at the point he's in his career. I just think in that moment, he was like, fourth down, we moved the ball the whole way down the field. You can't take the ball out of my hand. I'm your best player.
Yep.
So I totally understand. And just to go with Travis' point, being dejected after the game, you got a microphone get stuffed right in your face right after the game. You just worked your whole season, to get there. You've been there 5 times. You lost 4 times. Like all that stuff's running through your head. I mean, I can't blame the guy for just being real. Like
it is
I
funny.
Appreciate that, and more people should.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He said, the media is not used to players being like honest and truthful. Just saying how they feel.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, even that, like even the way y'all are talking about it, it's like, I'm not saying y'all are saying that, but it just sounds like we're sitting here talking about a guy who came out and said like, our coach is terrible or something. Like he didn't even say anything really. He just looked, it was just, you know what I mean? Like to me, it was just so overblown even from that standpoint. So, and Rodgers has always been the guy who's shown some attitude in the
definitely.
Media. Like he's been the one guy who isn't like a statue up there, and he'll say some smart stuff. So he'll say some stuff where it's like, oh, that's kind of, he's kind of a jerk. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not surprising that he would even go that far, but in general, I didn't really think he said anything that made me think like very much of anything, like he was mad at the coach or whatever, or anything like that. So,
yeah, I mean,
do you think that this, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, like in our amateur years of playing sports, whether it be high school, club and all that stuff, like after a big loss in a championship thing like that, like someone expects you to talk 15 minutes later and to like not be some kind of way or dejected. Like, I mean, I remember times just playing like pickup games and being pissed off for 30 minutes and not wanting to talk to anybody, like let alone being in like that stage in your career, like all that money's on the line, all that, like your legacy's on the line. I don't know.
Yeah, when you're a real competitor, you hate losing.
There's actually a great story of how pissed Juddy got in a slow pitch softball game, of losing a slow pitch softball game. Maybe we'll talk about that.
That's a
great story for next week, the in between Super Bowl week. We might have to get into that, but yeah, we know about that, Juddy.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple of comments here in the peanut gallery. Hold on here. So first thing we got Zach Wire calling right now. He said Brady's going to have an easy dub in the Super Bowl. And I responded to him and said, whoa, easy win. He responded with, think about it. Brady is not going to let it be a win for the Chiefs. Are the Chiefs elite? Yes, but the Chiefs are going to have to out. Are going to have to put Brady out if they want to win. So got Zach Wire right now making bold proclamations
I'll
of
say this.
a Brady guarantee.
I'll
He's
say
calling
this.
Joe Namath on Brady's
I
behalf.
am very confident that I am even financially confident that the Chiefs will beat the Bucks.
Whoa,
Yeah,
how financially confident?
Speaking of financially confident, I don't know how in the world, you talk about easy money. The fact that this spread is only 3 points for the Chiefs, that is some easy money right there. Because the Chiefs, I'm not to give my pick away or anything, but
Yeah.
the Bucks have no chance. They're not.
We have another comment here, a prediction of Aaron Rodgers on the move from Kelly Ferry. Aaron Rodgers to Cowboys. I'm calling it.
Oh wow.
That's definitely not happening.
That would be a blockbuster move, though. That'd be crazy.
That would be a blockbuster move because they're not in love with Dak. They've shown that, but I guess I don't know what we got to talk about or like if we have something else. But the big thing is this is like the first year I can remember in a really long time where it feels like there's going to be tremendous quarterback movement in the NFL.
Well, I'll say this, like to go with that, I was just thinking this week about how the NFL is really trending, and it has been for a good number of years, maybe 10 years or so. It's really trending to the team hopping league, kind of how like the NBA is as well, and like Major League Baseball, where it's like guys just aren't lifers for their team anymore. And this year we're really seeing it with the quarterbacks. We saw it a couple years ago with running backs and with wide receivers kind of hopping from different teams, but you look at some of the, and even some of the like the greatest quarterbacks. I mean, Brady, he's on his second team. Peyton Manning played on 2 teams. Like some of the top guys, Drew Brees, even though he technically really wasn't in San Diego long, but most of his career was with the Saints, but he played on 2 teams. So all these guys, it's not really, you don't really have these guys that play on these teams. So I'm actually really excited for free agency this year because I just want to see what happens. I want to see where Matt Stafford lands. I want to see if Deshaun Watson stays or goes. I want to see, what these people do. So
I hope the biggest thing with free agency, just kind of looking forward, I hate how they have that period now where they almost have the deal done before free agency begins. It takes all of that like anticipation out of it where like the free agents are dropping like throughout the days. Now it's like day one and Schefter's reporting an hour before free agency even starts, everything that's going to happen. So,
I mean, it's the same thing as Woj dropping bombs in the NBA season,
right,
too.
Woj bombs.
Schefter's always reporting what might happen. So don't report to me. You don't report something that might happen. A report is
sources are saying that he's leaning towards doing this possibly.
So just miss me with all this stuff that is possible, and we could have this. For the first time ever, we could have this many starting quarterbacks of a Pro Bowl caliber level doing this. Like, all right, man, that's all speculation. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we at least know.
Happens.
I think there's a high likelihood. We know Stafford's going to be shopped at the very least.
Yeah, they've already agreed to mutually part ways.
Watson, I still think is 50-50 because Houston can control whatever happens. But if he has it his way, he's probably gone.
Yeah, but if he has it his way, he wants to go to the Jets. Like, I understand, like, he wants to play for Robert Saleh, and, like, they say he really respects him. But, like, who wants to go to the Jets? Buddy. Like, why would you want to go to the Jets ever? I don't care, like, who the head coach is. I don't care if Bill Belichick went to the Jets. Why do you want to go to the Jets? I don't get it. But, I mean, there's still a lot of things left to be seen, too. I mean, Phillip Rivers retired as well, and, who's going to end up with the Colts? Is it going to be Carson Wentz, possibly?
Matt Stafford. One thing I would love to see, Matt Stafford to the Colts.
Everybody seems to say that's what they want.
I'm picking to win the Super Bowl next year.
That's what everybody wants. Because they say that he's never had a 100-yard or a 1,000-yard rusher on his team in 12 seasons playing, that he's never had a running game to support.
The Colts are a quarterback away from a Super Bowl contention. I mean, it's hard to not pick any. It's hard to say anybody can beat the Chiefs right now, and
right.
I would still put my money on the Chiefs in minus anything drastic happening in the offseason. But like, I put the Colts right there next to them if they got Stafford and it gelled offensively with the first year.
Yeah, and in the chat right now, I mean it's hopping right now. Some people, Gary Leitner thinks Stafford to Indy is a real possibility. And then Matt,
that's what people want. They want to see that.
Matt Ferry, aka Shabubi, for anyone who doesn't know, said that no one should ever want to go to the Jets. So
exactly, I agree with
Matt,
you, Matt.
We all agree with you, buddy. We all agree with you.
He must have hit his head a little too hard if he's requesting
these athletes these days, man. It's like Le'Veon Bell,
Yep.
It's like all these athletes who force their way out. AB, like the grass isn't always greener, man. It's just not. It's not always.
That's a horrible example because they're both going to play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
but
and
but they're
in the
both not
playoffs,
consistent.
there are
I know
3
what you're
catches
saying.
for 2
You know
yards
what I mean?
between collectively.
Like they're both not like Le'Veon Bell is non-existent with the Chiefs now. He went
Right.
from 3 years ago, everyone said Le'Veon Bell is the best running back in football. Right now, he's like their third string. Even when he was healthy, going into the game that Edwards-Helaire was hurt in, they started the kid Williams ahead of him.
No carries.
He was just basically a big, bulky back. That's what they thought of him. Like we signed you mid-season, and then it's like we're going to start the other kid ahead of you. And then AB, I mean, he's a third receiver at best on their team, so he hasn't been.
Here's the thing: Antonio Brown's probably he'll probably play. I don't think Le'Veon Bell will play, especially if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy. If anything, he'll probably be a healthy scratch as a third back, or he'll be activated just in case somebody gets hurt.
I think he'll be activated as a third back.
But AB might have, he'll probably have a decent day. I could see him getting some catches and a touchdown even. But like at the end of the day, I don't feel so bad because they're not the catalyst, the reason. Yeah, and they're not like
look at what AB was 2 years ago. He was hands down the best receiver, and now he's at number 3. Now part of that was the off the field stuff.
Yeah,
but he was never going to go to Oakland and put up the kind of numbers he put up at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm not going to be one of those. I'm not going to be one of those sour Steelers fans who are like, oh, AB and Le'Veon are in the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'd probably prefer Le'Veon over AB because of the way he left. But at the end of the day, like they're not the reason that those teams are in the Super Bowl, and they're not the reason they're going to win the game.
I could go down the depth chart and name the backup left tackle that's in the Super Bowl too. They're just as relevant as these two guys. So
exactly, that's exactly.
They're not relevant. They're not relevant to the Super Bowl.
What else you got, Dan?
Oh man, they're fired up. Greg Ferry said Brady didn't miss AB, which I agree with. There's some part of me that thinks that
force feeding,
like a little bit, yeah. But I have this like conflicting feeling where like I think Brady has a lot of trust with AB, more so maybe than some of his other receivers. But the problem that I have is like
I agree with that too, Dan. But we know why that is.
I know.
He's so far up AB's butt, he can't even see straight.
Yeah,
I know, but I feel like Evans and Godwin have dropped so many balls that he's a little like he'll throw the ball there, but it's a little bit gun shy.
He trusts AB's hands, I think. Yeah,
he trusts AB's hands, and I also think he trusts Scotty Miller's hands a little bit better than he does some of those other guys. So like how Brady is, man. He'll use whoever's open. The other thing we got, Gary Leitner said, best quarterback and best coach winning the Super Bowl, and they're both in Kansas City. I definitely think probably the best quarterbacks there. Andy Reid is getting up there as being the best. One of the he's obviously a great coach. I don't know if he's the best coach. I think
so.
Bill Belichick
let me ask you this though. Let me ask you this, Dan. Bill Belichick. Yes, I agree. He's had a lot of success. He just had a non-winning season. Andy Reid, when he left Philly and he went to the Chiefs, he pretty much immediately made them a playoff team back to back every year with Alex Smith, who's a middle of the road quarterback. He's, to me, in my eyes, from a success standpoint, what he was able to do leaving from one successful franchise who made a Super Bowl to another successful franchise who made the playoffs like regularly, and then now has won, probably back-to-back Super Bowls. I don't know. He's kind of climbing up there for me, and I'm starting to have a lot more respect for Andy Reid than I did initially. I used to think he was like, okay, he's just with Philly, whatever, he's just kind of there, but.
I like Andy Reid a lot. I think that the course that played out in Philly was exactly probably how it needed to play out. Near the end, Philly wasn't really doing a great job of getting talent for Andy. We didn't have really great anything. And even McNabb wasn't, McNabb was probably the best quarterback that we had to that point, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Andy Reid has the best quarterback he's ever had, and it's showing what you can do when you match a really good, great coach with a great quarterback. And that's what Belichick and Brady did for all those years. And Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are going to have a chance to go on a run.
Yeah.
And if Mahomes stays healthy and they're able to kind of keep that thing going with talent, they have a chance to probably match or get close to what Brady Belichick did.
Yeah. So, but that's pretty much all we got for this week. Look out for our show next Tuesday. Obviously, this weekend is the kind of the bye week before the Super Bowl. We do have plans to do a pregame show for the Super Bowl. We don't know exactly what time yet, but that will be on Super Bowl Sunday, where we will be live. So look out for that. But thanks for joining us. Be sure to find our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts as well, and you can find it on YouTube and Facebook. So that's going to wrap up our normal show. So yeah, let's continue this conversation.